All right, here we go, guys. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to our 365 deep dive for June 2025. I almost forgot what year it was for a second there, Andy, but how's it going, dude?
Going well, man. I did remember the year.
I was just thinking like 2026 for some reason. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's because over the past week I've installed iPad OS 26 and Vision OS 26. So maybe I'm already thinking about the next year ahead. I feel like it's kind of weird they did that, but then they're kind of saying it's like car models, but I don't know. It'll take some getting used to. I like it better than, iPad OS 18 and Vision OS 3. And so
I'm curious to see
whatever.
where Apple Intelligence goes and what improvements they are going to make to the
Yeah.
new versions of iOS. But I haven't did a deep dive into that because I've been in Copilot land for a while. I'm actually prepping for a conference headed to Seattle for TechCon
hmm
365 next week. Got some workshops, a few breakout sessions, and looking forward to sitting in on a bunch of other sessions while I'm there. So I've been deep in
Yeah.
Copilot world, working with prepping that, polishing that material, and getting ready for that trip.
Yeah, same for me. I've got we do so the fiscal year for my company rolls over at the end of June. So we've been the enterprise architects. We do an interlock session for all of the technology teams, end user technology through to info security and identity management and all of that. And we do a big 3-day kind of summit called the Technology Interlock. And this year, I employed Copilot to do a ton of work. So it's been exhausting, but it's also been a lot of fun because I've been using Copilot to like take the meeting notes, kind of the table stakes. But like I've been taking those notes, putting them into a SharePoint page and having it generate a news post that's a recap. So I could attach like, here's the recording, here's the notes from day one, and here's like the, what everybody talked about. And I send it out as like this beautiful newsletter. And then I've also taken that content, I put it into a SharePoint agent. So now we've got an agent about the next fiscal year technology strategy. And I put it into the new Copilot notebook and generated like a 15-minute podcast about it. So I've gotten like way more work, like a huge lift from it, but it's been pretty interesting. So I think I'm going to put together like some kind of a blog post or some kind of presentation about what I did, and like here's a package of things if you're doing a big kind of all hands meeting. So look forward to that. Maybe that's something we can deep dive on the future, or I can share somehow through like LinkedIn or something. But I kind of want to take all that and not just internalize it. I want to share because it was pretty successful, I think.
I
So
feel like a couple of those topics are on our agenda for upcoming shows, so we can definitely
yeah,
circle back
exactly.
and dive
Yeah,
into
it's kind
it
of that
next
whole
week.
life cycle of like
Yeah,
doing stuff with content. And I kind of threw everything at the wall, to see what sticks. Like I was making videos and making podcasts and, just see like what works, because I've kind of got like this Swiss Army tool of all these like different things I can do with Copilot, but like which ones are actually going to resonate, which ones are going to fall flat. I'm kind of just trying everything right now, which is probably overwhelming for all the people that are getting all my notifications.
I've
So,
long been a proponent of stitching different Copilot apps and experiences together to
mhm,
create something greater than the sum of the parts. So you might start in Copilot Chat and finish in Word, and there
mhm,
might be Loop and Copilot Pages in between, or Copilot Notebooks. There's kind of a workflow, and it's starting to mature a little bit. And the other day on LinkedIn, I saw a post that was basically saying like that same thing. It's not
mhm.
necessarily getting it all done in one place. It's when you kind of step from one app to another that it starts to kind of build and crystallize, and then you get like that final deliverable.
Yeah.
And like one of my favorite things that they've done recently is in Copilot Chat, you have a conversation with Copilot, you get your output, and then you can take it to Copilot Pages. Well, in the Copilot
Mhm.
Pages interface now, you can leave it as a page, or there's an option to extend it to Word. So I
Yep.
can start drafting something through the conversation, use the Copilot page to iterate against that, and then export it out to Word. And I've got
Mhm.
a deliverable and I don't really have to leave Copilot chat in order to do that. So that's been kind of an exciting workflow. I've been sharing that with
Mhm.
a lot of my
That's
colleagues.
exactly what I did. I took like the readout from all the notes, put it into Researcher. It made like a 12-page Copilot page, but not everybody has Copilot pages. So I exported that to Word and then formatted it to make it like an actual report. And the deliverable ultimately was a Word document. And it was nice not having to like copy and paste stuff around. It just kind of flowed into the next thing. So
Right, right.
but well, we've got an
We've got a
exciting
fun one.
topic today.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about kind of I think it's going to get a little bit philosophical, Andy, about like prompt engineering versus agents, and the idea of kind of what's our thoughts about what we use when, maybe a little bit of a bake off of a couple of scenarios that we've kind of thought about, and like when would we want to like use a prompt and kind of use like prompt engineering techniques and just have a conversation versus I don't want to like duplicate that every time. So I'm going to bake it into an agent and almost create kind of like a custom GPT in the chat GPT world. And, see about like at what point do we kind of tip over into like, it's time to build an agent out of this
Right,
workflow, right?
right.
So I think it's going to be pretty interesting. I think you have a little bit more experience, especially around the conscious prompt engineering that you do. I've been a little bit more willing to kind of like jump in and do like an agent builder agent, so a very lightweight agent,
Right,
to be like, I'm tired of priming the pump every time. I'm just going to put it into custom instructions.
right,
So I think we'll have some pretty decent takes on what we do, just as guys who are using this. Not
right.
necessarily a lot of science behind it, but just kind of like some experience behind it. Um, yeah.
So I actually did a presentation on this just last week for a Microsoft
Mm-hmm.
cohort, and I've been thinking about this for quite a while now. We've been trying to figure out our governance around agents, and just to kind of set the scene a little bit. Users can prompt in a bunch of different places, whether it's in Copilot chat or Word, Excel, PowerPoint. But where you prompt matters, and what you ask it to do matters, because there's different capabilities. And sharing prompts has been a little bit of a challenge, because we have Prompt Gallery, there's Prompt Buddy, there's creating your own prompt notebook, whether that's in like Loop or OneNote, and there's sharing of prompts. The
Mm-hmm.
challenge is you can run the same prompt multiple times, and you're going to get a little bit different results each time. Just like if you were to ask me, what's the weather like today? I could say,
Mm-hmm.
well, it's 85 and sunny, or it's mid 80s and sunny, or, it's hot outside. It's all kind of saying the same thing, but it's saying it in kind of a different way. And that's the thing about prompts. Like, even though I run it multiple times, the output can be a little bit different each and every time. And
Mm-hmm.
then on the other side of that, we have agents. And with agents, we have the ability to define a role, which we can do through prompting, but we can also give it a set of instructions. And those instructions not only determine the output of what it's going to give us, but it also gives us the ability to control some of the behavior. How does it interact with the person? Does it request any information? Does it fill in the gaps from that person? And then it starts to generate the output. And you still prompt an agent, but there's more guardrails in place. There's more um, consistency. Now,
Mm-hmm.
granted, the output's going to vary a little bit, but working with agents and testing versus prompting, there's a lot of similarities between the two.
Yeah.
You still have to do things like your goal, your context, your expectations, and your source. You have to be clear in what you want it to output. But with an agent, because you can put in some instructions, you can kind of give yourself a way to make sure you get the necessary information, make sure that it has an out, so it can say, well, I don't know, or that's beyond the scope. And in looking at that, it tells me that we get a little bit more consistency with agents than we might get with prompts. And then the other part, as I'm doing this exploration, I can't help but think, like, I create a set of prompts. I share those prompts with somebody else. Somebody might share them with me, but I'm prompting. I'm learning how to do this. And it's me, 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 me. And then I get to the agent part, and it's like, create an agent. Oh, this might be good for some other teammates that I have. Or this is giving me good results. I want to share this so my other teammates can benefit from it. And then it starts going into the we area. So then we're back into that whole Microsoft me versus we. And I'm seeing as we get into agents, we're starting to get into that we territory where we can benefit from this. We can share the agent and everybody can take advantage of it. The other thing is when you really start diving into this, you start to figure out that when you're prompting goal, context, expectations, and source, how you ask it matters. And when you're creating instructions for an agent, that matters as well. And there's a lot of similarities between the two. But there's a couple of resources we'll show here today that have been really helpful for me to create better instructions. And then one of the best tools for creating instructions is actually Copilot itself. Asking Copilot to take a prompt and turn it into a set of instructions and reference the official documentation from Microsoft on it, I found that that's gotten some really high quality results. And so we wanted to demo that and kind of walk through that flow in this deep dive here today.
Cool. All right. So where do we want to start, you think? Probably with kind of the basic chat experience and what we're using to both craft in prompts as well as share those prompts. Because I think part of kind of what tips me over into the agent world is sharing that idea, and like I can use prompt gallery to share, or I could kind of bake it in, and it kind of depends on like, do you want people to be able to adjust the prompt, or do you want it to be kind of hard coded, right? So
I think we need to start. Change is inevitable in this in the Microsoft world, especially as it relates to Microsoft 365 Copilot. I think we need to start with the most recent thing that's actually changed and rolled out for a lot of users, and that's the updated Microsoft 365 Home experience, or as it's now known, M365 Copilot Home. I think we need to start there, kind of baseline a little bit, and then we can branch out. Yeah,
and I'm showing my screen right now. This is kind of what we're talking about. So Microsoft has kind of moved our cheese a whole lot recently. I'll zoom in a little bit. And some of the tools that we're going to talk about, like Prompt Gallery and Agent Builder, they have moved to different locations. And this is rolling out right now. It should mostly be rolled out to everybody when you log in to m365.cloud.microsoft. Or if you're like me, you just go to office.com because you're old school. It's going to take you to this UI. And the first thing that I noticed whenever I landed on this is it's very, chat centric, right? It's chat front and center. And I was like, what the heck? Where are my prompts in Prompt Gallery? Because a lot of us, we use, these prompts that we've put work into and we've saved them. Well, the first tip that I have is in the new user interface, you're going to see it under the See More section. That's where your prompt gallery is. So when you land on this page, if you want to call up a prompt that you've used in the past, you'll click See More. And then at the bottom, there's your prompt gallery. It's kind of at the bottom of all those suggested prompts. And that allows me to open up my saved prompts, go into one of them. And this is one of my go-to prompts. This is from Michelle Bauman on YouTube like 2 years ago now, I think, where it was like a wrap up your day and plan for tomorrow. I saved that thing that long ago and I want to call that up. And this is an example of careful prompt engineering where it's got a lot of, hey, I want you to have these two sections. I want you to call them a specific thing today and one for tomorrow. I want you to put this in a table and give me percentages for that thing. Tell me when to take breaks. And you want that to be consistent every time. So that's a perfect example of, I don't want to type that every time. I don't want to paste that from like a OneNote notebook. So I save it as a prompt in my prompt gallery. But that kind of helps you like where, what the heck, where did my prompts go?
Right.
It's under the See More section. That's thrown a few of my users off recently. But yeah, you can see here's that prompt going, and it's so nicely formatted. And, I could take this and put it into an agent, but this is kind of one of those one and done things, like I run this and then I move on with my day, right? I don't really need to bake this into the personality or behavior of an agent. That would kind of be like, using a hammer to kill a fly, right? it'd be, too much. So I think that's just one example I've got of something that it started as a prompt. I've saved it, and it doesn't make any sense for me to like wrap that into a behavior for an agent.
Right.
If I want to share it, I'll simply just click the little, the little link icon right here and send that to somebody,
So a couple things to follow up on there.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned moving our cheese, and you mentioned where the heck did my prompt gallery go? I've got to call this out. So you just showed how to get to prompt gallery from kind of the start screen, and it's an extra click or two to get to it. But the other thing, and this is a big change for Microsoft, just announced like within the last week, is the prompt app is going away. So if you go to apps, so on the left-hand side of the screen there, and you look for the prompt app.
Yeah, which is right here.
Yeah, go ahead and click on that.
Yep.
It's going to load, and there's a big old banner at the top. The prompt app is going to be retired on July 15th, 2025. We just got it. It's only been here for a little while. We're just now really starting to figure out how to put it into our workflow. And what I love about it is that it's accessible in the sidebar here in Teams and in the web browser and in Outlook. So it shows up in a couple of different places as a side item. I can quickly click on it, and there's Microsoft's prompts, there's my prompts, and there's prompts that I've shared with my team. I think as a standalone, I really like it, but like we're burying the prompt. Like, can we keep prompt gallery easily accessible, whether it's through the soon to be retired prompt app or through the prompt gallery as it relates to the prompt editor in the chat interface?
And I know Microsoft, they announced that they're getting rid of the prompts app in Teams and as a standalone app in the web interface because of low usage. I know I didn't see Microsoft promote it very much. I didn't promote it all that much. It's nice to have like all in one, but it's also convenient to have it in the chat. I personally think that it's a little bit too behind the scenes to have it underneath the see more. I really wish they would kind of put like this icon right here, the sparkle. I wish they would like either put it, right on the corner of the thing or put it above like it is when you actually are in the chat.
Well, the interesting thing is go back to your daily wrap up.
Yeah.
After you ran one, look in the lower right-hand corner now.
Yeah, it's there now.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, like a lot of times people are going to start with a prompt from prompt gallery. So I think it makes sense to put it above the fold, stick it right there. But maybe Microsoft has a longer term master plan for that homepage.
I've got one more thing I want you to show while you're here. Go back up to your prompt at the top.
Yeah.
And now it's in the middle, the schedule option. Now we've got the ability to start scheduling prompts. This is rolling out worldwide now. We've got it in our tenant. This is in the NDA tenant. It's general.
Yeah, it's just general availability. Yeah.
So now we got the ability to schedule this prompt. So we can take your daily wrap up and you can schedule it and have it run every afternoon at a certain time, and you don't have to think about it, and then like you get the output of that.
And that's actually what I've done already. So I recorded my video about how to do this yesterday. That's going to be coming out in 2 weeks. But over here under the scheduled prompts,
video on scheduling prompts. And you scheduled the video.
I did. Yeah, I scheduled it to launch. So check that out. The prompt that we're talking about, I actually already scheduled it to run at 4 p.m. every day.
Nice.
So that was my video demo about that. But yeah, that's a new thing. And it's another one of those like prompt versus agent. You can't schedule an agent, at this time, unless you go into like Copilot Studio and make a trigger that's a scheduled task.
Right.
Inside of regular Agent Builder, you can't schedule an agent to wake up and go do something for you at this time. But you can with a scheduled prompt. If you've got the same thing that you want to run and it's like a copy and paste type of a situation, do it as a prompt and then you can schedule it now as well, which is really cool.
So we've kind of baselined a little bit on prompts. Now, just so everyone tuning in at home knows, this is one of many places that you can prompt. But it seems like Microsoft is really starting to emphasize Copilot Chat. They put a lot of polish into this. This has been like a big marketing initiative for them recently. They overhauled, the entire homepage. This is starting to roll out across Teams and Outlook in the sidebar as well. So we're starting to see a lot of work being put into this, and that just indicates to me that it's important. Microsoft recognizes that it's important, and really, when you think about some of the other generative AI experiences, it starts around chat. So if I go to Chat GPT, it's a chat interface. It's a single destination and source to begin with. If I go to Anthropic Claude, it's a chat-based interface. Same deal. So it seems like Microsoft's really leaning into that. And from my organization standpoint, I've been promoting this for like over a year. Like, start a Copilot chat because it's really the most powerful experience that we get. Now, we still have Copilot in our other apps: Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, Outlook, Teams, and so on. Not all of those Copilots have the full capabilities that you have here, but a recent Message Center update said that there's going to be more parity with Copilot chat inside of Word, Copilot chat inside of Excel, side by side with like the document that you're working on. So they're really starting to expand what they have here into some of those other apps. So the prompting part, interacting with chat, that's still going to be core to Copilot. That's still going to be core to the user experience. As a user, I go here, I prompt, I get my results, and then I go to the next phase of my workflow. But it's going to be woven into some of the other apps that I'm already working with, which can streamline my workflow and maybe minimize some of like the back and forth, which I don't quite get if I'm working with some of the competitors. And then really the other big thing emphasizing chat is that Copilot chat has the ability to connect to my cloud files: OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, Outlook, Exchange, information in the Microsoft cloud. I can quickly get to one or more files and reference many files as part of a chat conversation, versus with some other tools, there might be some attachments and uploads and some configuration that has to be done. I get all that out of the box with Copilot. So I'm a big fan of that. But I just wanted to call out the updates that they've made tells me that there might be looking at increased importance as chat as an experience, in addition to weaving it into some of the other apps that we already work with.
Yeah. So Amy has a really good question here about like, what about Copilot to create instructions? And I know we'll definitely get into that when we talk about the custom instructions for building an agent. But did you want to show to kind of kick off a little bit about the prompt coach? I know you've been a big fan of that in the past.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Bring my screen up.
And Amy, I hope that you're safe. I know you're in Israel right now. I appreciate you, joining in and chatting with us, and hope that you're doing all right over there, man. He's a friend and fellow MVP. So we're on your screen now. If you want to show that prompt coach, I think some people might not be aware that, like, where do I start with this prompting stuff and where do I start with prompt engineering? There's actually an agent that Microsoft built that can help you out with this process.
So I'm going to just highlight over here on the side. I've already got it pinned over here. I've got all the coaches from Microsoft already pinned. But all you have to do is go to all agents and you can find these same coaches, creators that already have, and you can pin those in. So actually, if we drill into that, as soon as you go into the agent store, right away, Microsoft's already highlighting these. So immediately, you're going to have all the different coaches and even the more advanced agents that they now have, researcher and analyst. Those are also going to be listed there. But once you click on one of these, you'll have the option to go ahead and install it. And then you can go and you can pin these to the sidebar so that they're quick, one click to get back into. And agents tend to expand by default whenever you visit Copilot Chat versus like conversations and pages. You have to kind of expand to get into that. But now that I'm in Prompt Coach, I see the starter prompts, and keep in mind the starter prompts are designed to give you an idea of what the agent can do. Some just quick inspiration. Show me 3 good prompt examples, and then you can insert topic. You're still going to prompt the agent. You're still going to ask it to do something. So you still need to give it things like the source, goal, expectations, and context. But you're still going to prompt like against it. So like, for example, help me to create a good prompt to be used in Copilot. And I'm going to append on that and say for recapping my day with comms, meetings, and action items. And so I'm going to send that to the prompt coach. Now it's an agent. And so its instructions are saying, okay, the goal, and it's just repeating back to me, and then it's going to ask for some clarification. So its instructions told it to do that. The goal, you want a daily recap, the context, your workday, meetings, communications, and tasks. Source, should Copilot pull from Outlook, Teams, OneNote, and other tools? Expectations, how do you want this formatted, bullet points? And so you can reply to that, and then it's going to give you an output. And I'm just going to say, I'm going to tell it to use its best judgment. I'm going to let it iterate through just so we can see. Now, notice it said, thanks, Andy. Based on your goal and leaving the judgment to me, here's a rounded prompt. And then it's going to start to generate that. And then it's going to explain a little bit about what it's supposed to do. Now, I could just copy that, or I could actually copy the response from up here. And I'm going to actually, let's just take this one and let's just go into a chat. I'm going to make sure I'm in the work toggle. Paste it in. We'll go ahead and send that. And because I'm a fully licensed Microsoft 365 Copilot user, I'm on the work tab. It should be able to go through, look for my information into this particular tenant. And we haven't sent a whole lot of things because we haven't been demoing. This will change after next week. So we'll be doing a lot of demos here while I'm at a conference. But you can see it started to divide things up: meetings, communications, action items. It created some sections. And then it went and expanded. Now, behind the scenes, what's actually going on there? So now let's get meta. Let's drill down into it. I'm going to create an agent. And when I create an agent, the first thing you see is the Copilot Studio chat agent tool. You get a preview on the right that shows you an interactive version of the agent as you're building it. And as a default, you can actually start prompting and have a conversation with it, and it's going to configure your agent for you through natural language, and then it'll give you a working version that you can actually go in the sidebar, and you can test in real time before you decide to create and publish this. But before I even do that, notice in the center here, we have a whole section for templates. And that's where I actually encourage you to start when you're getting started with agents. Take one of these default agents that are coaches that they have, view the templates, and then use that as the basis to understand how to start creating an agent. So here's Prompt Coach. Now we saw an example of what it does just a moment ago. Source, goal, context, expectations, ask me a couple of questions, responds to me by my first name, gives me an output, ask a follow-up. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to load this as a template, and then it's going to state, kind of its purpose. It's going to give a link to the documentation so we can go and learn more. And then because it's loaded this, it's also giving you a preview over here to test to see what it can look like. And now the create button is lit up, and I would be able to go in and work with it. But I want to see behind the scenes, what's it actually doing? So that's when we go up here to the configure tab. And underneath configure, I'm going to be able to drill down into the agent, and I'm going to be able to see what's actually happening behind the scenes. So first and foremost, we've got the name. It's called Prompt Coach. We'll see that right up here at the top. Below that, we have the description. So it just gives a brief description. I want to come back to that in a moment. Then we've got the instructions right down here. So we can see the instructions. And the interesting thing is, if you hover over the little information bullet point here, direct the behavior of the agent, including its task and how it completes them. So there's more on that if we go to the documentation, and we're going to visit that in just a moment. But as I look through the instructions, it's pretty detailed. It's a pretty robust set of instructions, a prompt. Like when you really get into prompt engineering, you hear things like use bulleted list or numbered list, use markdown, give it things like a way to say, I don't know, give it specific series of steps to follow. They're actually doing that in the instructions. The triple quote or the pound sign, that tells me that that's a H3 header inside of there, for
Mhm.
instance. Double asterisk, that tells me that that's in bold if you know Markdown. And so there's Markdown instructions in there, and that's how they're telling it what to do. And that also indicates to me that Markdown is important for the instructions. Now, as I keep going down, I'm going to see there's knowledge. So just like our standard agents, we can provide knowledge sources to it, URLs. You can upload files into it, SharePoint sites, Microsoft Teams, even Outlook emails now can be referenced. And then if you hover over this, it's going to tell you available knowledge sources are going to vary based off your product licensing. And then they have typically shown in here that you are limited to 20 knowledge sources. So I don't know if there's been a recent update to that since I did this demo last week. We'll dive into that in a moment. Now,
Yeah, that whole UI has kind of changed. I noticed that like the web content toggle went
yeah,
away, and now when you click in the little search bar, you can say I want web content,
yeah,
or I want my emails. So they've kind of been doing some tweaks, to the builder experience.
yeah, yep. And on that note, when I click in it, this is very similar to the interface I get when I'm prompting all files, sites, chats.
Hmm.
And then over here, I have available cloud files. That's going to connect me to things like SharePoint sites and the SharePoint sites that are backing up Microsoft Teams inside of my environment. So I could drill down into one of those if I needed to, and use that as a source or for this particular
Hmm.
agent. And then you can refresh the knowledge as well. Continuing down, you're going to see capabilities. So if you want it to be an image generator, you can turn it into an image generator. You want it to work with code, it's going to be able to convert natural language into code. You can turn and determine the type that you want. And then lastly, you can start building the suggested prompts. These are the 6 tiles that it chooses by default. You can customize this. And I just want to emphasize the suggested prompts are really helpful for just a glance how to use this particular agent. What are a couple of
Hmm.
things that I could ask this agent to do for me? It's immediate inspiration for the user. It shows up right in the context of the agent, and then you can start building it. So reverse engineer the agents that they have. Take a look at prompt coach, writing coach, learning coach, and then add those as templates into the agent builder, and you can get an idea of what is happening with that agent. And then you can learn a little bit more. Now, I like to pull things apart and put them back together. So what I like to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to copy those instructions. Now I'm going to head back to chat. I'm going to go to the web toggle because I don't want it to pull from any of my work data.
Hmm.
And um, I'm just going to ask it to, I'll type it correctly. And I'm just going to drop that in. I'm also going to say, because I know there's Markdown in there,
Hmm.
and I'm just going to ask Copilot to explain it to me. Give me some information, because remember, Copilot has its manual built into it. It also has, I'm on the web toggle, so it's going to have the ability to search the web and pull back information. But I can get it to just
Hmm.
explain the instructions to me in simple terms and what the instructions are actually designed to do, step-by-step instructions, the prompt requirements. It asks for missing info, one item at a time. Once all the requirements are collected, then it'll start to generalize and create a final prompt. Um, if the analysis is requested, it wants the original prompt, an improved version, and then like provides a breakdown of why it made the changes that it did. It's going to fact check it against the responsible AI guidelines, fix any problems associated with it. So just asking Copilot about the instructions can be a big help in understanding how you can create a series of instructions. Now, this one went through, it ended up with overall direction, tone, and interaction. So that's also something that you can include in it.
Mhm.
Um, ask clarifying questions, be clear but not overwhelming. Don't use emojis, use emojis. What kind of responses? And then, does Markdown matter? Yes, Markdown matters because it helps to structure the responses. It helps to highlight key points like bold, italics, and underlines, and it improves readability for users. So, if you don't know Markdown, you can ask Copilot to help you to create your instructions with Markdown. Now, I'm going to head back to the agent or the create agent screen for just a second. And we'll just use one of the, we'll use the same one, the prompt coach again. And I'm going to go
Mhm.
back to the configure tab one more time. And what I skipped over is really, I think, what's a number of things that are really important: name, description, instructions, and knowledge. Now, there's a link here to documentation, and I'm going to click on that and open that up in a new tab. So this takes you right into the documentation that Microsoft provides on this.
For
And
that one template. Yeah.
yep. And if you walk through this, you're going to see it really starts to explain a number of things related to actually creating an agent and creating its instructions. But the other thing that I want to point out is on this same article, it's
Mhm.
we're highlighted prompt coach right up here. So the instructions are for prompt coach. But if you look down, you're going to see there's write effective instructions. And that one, I think, is the gold mine for really understanding what you need to do with agents. Now, the first time I came across this article, and we've shared this, I think, a couple of times previously, but the first time I came across this article, I was reading this. I'm like, declarative agents. I'm not a developer. I'm not writing custom code and working with Azure AI Foundry.
Mhm.
I'm not deep in VS Code or Visual Studio working with this. But I was in just a general purpose Microsoft meeting, and one of the presenters said, "Hey, check out this article. It's really good," and went and dove into it. And that's when the light bulb went off, because when you scroll down through here, what you're going to see: structure your instructions in Markdown, build step-by-step workflows with transitions, and then if you keep going down, there's provide examples. That's one shot, few shot prompting, iterate on your instructions. You're not going to get it right the first time. And then you keep going down, you get some example instructions. And then
Mhm.
finally, what you're going to get, like some related content, and there's a link to some best practices. But if you start like really diving into these instructions, what you're going to find is that they've documented what it means to work with things like the description and the instructions. And just to clarify that, the description states the role of the agent.
Mhm.
And from prompt engineering, when you give any AI a role, you get higher quality results out of it because you narrow down its scope to a certain set of knowledge, and it is the expert in that knowledge. So if
Yeah.
I tell it, you're going to be an administrative assistant in charge of scheduling for an executive team, I've given it a very specific role and a very specific set of skills. And then I can give it a set of instructions. And that's when I tell it what to do, the order to execute those steps in, um, the things to know along the way, how to interact with the user along the way, give it an out, which is a best practice. I set the tone for it and its responses, the format and the outcome that I want. And John, I'm going to go back and use your analogy because I've used this one
Mhm.
all the time now. This is where I tell my 5-year-old how to empty the dishwasher and what steps to execute that task in, and where things go and how things are
Mhm.
like actually organized. I'm giving it all of that actual information. So those two articles really kind of provide a lot of insight in it, but this is really the way that I step through it. And I don't know if other people are kind of stepping through and learning agents like this, or they just dove into agents and started like trying to prompt against it. But as soon as I discovered I could use the templates and then I could reverse engineer them, I was like, let's pull this apart and learn from it. And then
Mhm.
I'll start building my own custom agents.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that they've like documented all of this, and it used to be, I think they had these like published on GitHub somewhere, but now
Hmm.
it's under like that documentation link that you showed.
Right.
So it's nice that it's more accessible and gives you kind of some of the background of like why things are formatted in a certain way, stuff like that. I think it's kind of interesting how it called out in the reply back to you that like markdown really matters, because Microsoft hasn't really been a big proponent of talking about markdown a whole lot,
Mhm.
in like the M365 world until now in the generative AI era. It's like, oh, like markdown's kind of the standard, and I think that's probably coming from the open AI, the
Right.
standards that they use.
Now,
So,
for the people that are like tuning in, if you don't work with Markdown, don't be afraid of it. Ask Copilot to format your instructions in Markdown for you.
mhm.
It'll do that. It
I've done that in the
understands
past.
Markdown
Yeah.
and it can write it for you. So don't be afraid of it. Ask Copilot for Markdown instructions. It'll give it to you.
Mhm.
So what I want to do is I want to take this, what we know here, and I
Mhm.
want to um, show a workflow that can take a prompt and then turn it into like a set of instructions. All right,
Okay.
so let me double check my clipboard. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm gonna head back to Copilot chat.
Mhm.
All right, and I'm going to ask Copilot. All right, so I'm going to give it kind of a similar prompt to you. I want it to basically like recap my day, and I want it in a certain set of like sections. Um, I want things like accomplishments, comms, emails, chats. I want meetings, and then I want some action items for tomorrow.
Mhm.
And I'm going to tell it. Now, let's be nice to it. Please reference. We'll spell that correctly. Please reference, and I'm just going to go and I'm going to grab the instructions from Microsoft, and then here's an example of instructions from a Microsoft agent.
Mhm.
So by giving it the sample, give me 1 second. That's on my clipboard over here. By giving it a sample, we're giving it basically a one-shot example. And then the last thing, we'll go ahead and send that. And so it returned that pretty quickly. So it's given a purpose. That's the role of the agent. It's defining the goals, telling it what it needs to do, overall direction, and then it's asking me, do I want this outputted in like JSON or YAML? I'm just going to say Markdown. And it started to generate. It's not giving me all of the actual Markdown file. Yeah, can you save it as a Markdown file? Sure. And let's see if it'll actually generate that as a text file that I can download. It's been doing a better job of that recently, actually creating the files that it claims that it can
Mhm.
create.
That's that like code interpreter functionality where it's
Yeah,
able to like write the Python to create the
right.
file. Yeah.
So let's actually just open that and we'll double check on that. Um,
This is the fun of live demos. We have no idea what it's gonna have
I got
inside
three
that file.
monitors. I don't know which screen it opened up on, but I'll go find it in a minute and I'll bring it over. But so it's given me pretty much everything that I wanted. So now what I would
Mhm.
actually do is go and test against that. But I did want to show like that workflow, and I'm going to put this in a loop page so it's easy for me to go back and find later. Copilot
Mhm.
page. So now I've got um, the conversation and then the output uh, of the conversation, and then down here, this is what I actually wanted. This would be the role and the instructions that I want to give to the agent. And so we would take that information and then actually go back and like start building the agent. So now we've got this, and we could open it up in a new tab. And I like going split screen so I can be in two places at once. So let me go into the split screen in oh, there it is. So I'm over here, and my instructions are on the sidebar. I'm just going to get to the create an agent screen. All right, so I'm going to go into configure it, and then I'm just going to go through and start copying and pasting. Here we go. And then I'll just grab everything from over here. Start building the instructions.
It's so handy to split inside of Edge like this.
All right, so I think I'm good now. Yeah, I'm just going to close the split. All right,
Okay.
so go back and check. I'm not doing any specific knowledge sources. I'm not going to do the starter prompts yet, but that should bring everything in. And then we'll say like recap my day. We'll try and test it. And again, there's not a lot of data for this particular user. I should have backfilled some of it. But if there is, it'll start to create some outputs. And then, see, now it's giving me my accomplishments, comms, chat. That's a format that I wanted. Meetings, that's the format that I wanted. Action items for tomorrow, that's the format that I wanted. So that's actually pretty accurate based off of taking
Yeah,
that
that looks pretty good.
it into a set of instructions. It went ahead and also did things like highlighted with our bolding certain for titles or displays for the items that are there. It's in the proper format though, so we're off to a really good start. The next thing I want to show though is the starter prompts. How do I get the starter prompts to build this? I don't want to do this by hand. I'm going to go back to Copilot Chat. So Copilot Chat, I've given it the reference material that it needs. I've told it what it wants. And so now I'm just going to say, ask Copilot Chat, can you create 3 to 6 starter prompts for this agent? I'm going to let it do the work. Now, these are a little too on the nose. So I might just iterate against it a couple of times. Can you make this more generic? Can you create 3 to 6 starter prompts to showcase to users how they can use the agent and a couple of general guidelines for it? And I'm just going to ask Copilot to do that work for me. And then I'll just do the same thing I did before. I'll copy and paste that. I'll bring it back into the agent, update the starter prompts. And then within a couple of minutes, I've taken a prompt, turned it into an agent. Now I've got starter prompts. Now we can start testing it. And then we iterate against it. We test it. We get the feedback. And we'll demo some of this coming up in a little bit. But basically, once you run the agent a couple of times, you get the feedback. Go and have a conversation with Copilot and ask it to help you to measure the instructions versus the output versus your desired results. Give it a gold standard to compare against. And once you've done that gold standard version of it, it'll update and append the instructions, and then you're going to get higher quality results. And just iterate against it until you get what you're wanting consistently each time you run it. And that's how you can kind of step through a workflow of taking a prompt and turning it into an agent and a set of instructions without having to do a whole lot of learning initially. You can let Copilot kind of guide you along the way.
Yeah. That's super powerful. And I think we have a few other examples if you want to shift to that, where we were talking about doing a couple of examples like writing corporate comms or doing like quizzing for like onboarding employees, things like that for Jolly Roger Java, just to kind of iterate on that a little bit. Somebody says, nice advice. We'll write that down. That's kind of the main point. We've been on this for several months, where we're talking about like using Copilot to guide you, and have those back and forth conversations, and not just like a one and done type of thing. It's too like narrow minded, I've found, to be like, hey, I want these instructions for this thing, just give it to me. But like Andy kind of went back and was like, hey, what about some starter prompts? Hey, what about this idea? What about that idea? And let Copilot go back and forth, and also have it challenge you. Like one other thought, a tip that might be like, what am I missing from my instructions? Take the agent idea and be like, how could I make this better, Copilot? Don't pull any punches. Don't be nice. Tell me where I'm lacking, to kind of make it challenge you a little bit more.
So to kind of dive into some interactive examples, what John and I thought we would do, and we wanted to do this kind of a fun interactive exercise, was our company, Jolly Roger Java, are in the process of exploring prompting in agents. And we're looking for a consistent set of prompts that we can share for a couple of different business processes, but we want to compare that to some agent work. So in a vacuum, we're going to do kind of a prompt-a-thon. We're going to give you a scenario. We're each going to come up with our own version of a prompt against that. We're going to run our version of a prompt, and then we're going to share our version with each other, and we're both going to run the other one's prompt. As we're doing this, if you want to chime in with your version of the prompt online, that would be kind of fun, and we can run that. So we're going to give you the scenario, and you can think about what your prompt might be. I'll think about mine. John will think about his. We'll run it. We'll show the output of that, compare the results, swap prompts, run the output, compare the results, and then we're going to try and agentify it, or turn it into an agent. We got to get that. We've got like groupify and teamify,
agentify.
Agentify.
It sounds like gentrify.
So we're going to turn it into an agent. So that's kind of the flow that we want to run through through this next part. So Jolly Roger Java, that's our corporate coffee shop. We recently started doing some research into opening our 15th store. That was a fun workshop at the Microsoft 365 Collaboration Conference in Las Vegas. But extending off of that work, the next couple of things that we want to do is we want to do some things around branding. So we've got a fall beverage campaign coming up, and hopefully I'm not throwing a curveball on this, because we did talk about this in our instructions the other day. We've got a fall beverage campaign coming up. So what we want to use is we want to have Copilot be our ideation partner, help us come up with some fall beverage options. What are some things that would be a hit in the fall time frame? To include as specials and to generate traffic and get people into the coffee shops in that time frame. So fall beverage drink ideas, that's the theme. Think about your prompt. How would you prompt that? What kind of parameters would you provide in your prompt? If you want to share those with us, in the comments or live, that's cool. John's going to think about his. I'm going to think about mine. So without sharing our screens, we'll go ahead and start typing up or pasting in our prompts, and then we'll show those on the screen. We'll run them so you can see the output. We'll switch back and forth, and then we will, for any of you, those of you that are playing along at home, if you want to share yours, we'll share it on the screen, and we'll go from there. So fall beverage menu items, go.
All right. So I'm going to start out on my side. I think I'm going to use the prompt coach to try to build a prompt, for, hey, I want to do this, like ideation, give me ideas, give me 10 or 20 or whatever for the prompt. So I'm going to go through and try that route here. So just to show my screen so it's not dead air here. So in the prompt coach, there's that first section right here. It says, help me generate a prompt to be used by Copilot. So we're going to go in to that one. The prompt will be to generate ideas for the fall menu for Jolly Roger Java. And just kind of keep it simple like that. See what it comes back with. So this is really handy from the prompt coach. It comes back and asks you clarifying questions, right? Because I would have had to come up from my mind, and Andy's prompt might already have this, where he has to explain what Jolly Roger Java is and what our common themes are and things like that, and I didn't put that in my initial prompt, and that could have been a huge miss, right? So like, it's already got the goal, right? I want to generate fall menu ideas. The context, like, what is Jolly Roger Java, right? So I'm going to add that context to that. Jolly Roger Java is a pirate themed coffee shop, right? Do you have a theme or branding? Yeah, I put that in there. I'm looking for drink options, right? Like, I'm going to kind of narrow that down. That's part of the scope or the context for section number 2, right? Kind of don't boil the ocean, narrow it down. Are there specific ingredients? So for specific ingredients, I want to incorporate typical fall ingredients and flavors. Then I'm just going to do a couple carriage returns there. Expectations. Do you want a list of items with descriptions? Ooh, I like grouped by category. Should include pricing or just creative ideas. Give me menu items, descriptions, ingredients, group them by category. I do like that. And then I think also, after all is done, put a horizontal line and then give me the recipes for the drinks, right? Because I don't want them part of the menu. I want them to be separate so I can split it apart. So I'm going to run that and see what it comes back with. How's yours going over there, Andy? Are you creating from scratch with your own, or are you
I'm going straight
cheating like me?
I haven't been listening. My earmuffs. I have been over here going deep into my prompt engineer dictionary and coming up with my version of a hand-typed custom prompt for
Nice.
what I would like it to try to do.
Awesome. So for those who are watching at home, and Andy's not cheating, this is my final prompt. So I'm going to take this prompt and I'm going to go run it. And then we're going to kind of see what my output that's like assisted by a prompt coach versus Andy's input, of just being good at this stuff already. So the key here is, like, it didn't run that prompt, right? It's a prompt coach. It's not going to do it for you. So now I've got to go start a new conversation and run this particular prompt. So I've copied it. Now I'm going to go back up to a normal chat, and then I'm going to paste in all of that stuff, and I'm going to run it. So while that's running, Andy, do you want to show anything yet, or how's yours going?
We can bring one up. I've typed mine in.
All right, cool. So yeah, let's look at what yours is, and then mine's like running right now. So then we'll switch to mine after you're done.
So my prompt, just typed it in, top of mind, and first thing is you're a marketing guru for Jolly Roger Java. Come up with 10 fall beverage ideas that are new and unique. Try to avoid pumpkin flavors. The name should align with Jolly Roger Java coffee and the brand and theme. Once you create a list of beverages, cross-reference with market research and develop a ranking formula to evaluate the success of each beverage. Review your list and rank each beverage. Now, full disclosure, I'm running this on the web tab. I'm not running this on the work tab, but I'm going to run it on the work tab because I want to show both results. So the last thing you should probably do in a situation like this is tell it, ask me if you have any questions or if you need clarification, give it an out. Let's not do that. Let's just see what happens. So I'm going to send it. And I like the new animation that they've added when it's thinking. It's a little thing. All right. So it went ahead based on the trends. It's given me a couple of references if we hover to discover. And then down here, it went ahead and gave me the 10 drinks that I wanted. And just at a glance, I do not see anything pumpkin related. So that's a win for me. It did give it the names that are kind of related. It didn't ask me about Jolly Roger Java. It just went ahead and ran with the pirate theme. I think's fine. I like the alliteration in a lot of the names. I think that's great. I didn't ask for that, but that's something that we could ask for. The Applejack I. It's always fun to do these demos live. And then down here, it says that it's trying to do market research. It says based off of its resources that cold brew and nitro are still booming, health conscious functional ingredients. I'm not big on like sage or anything like that in my drinks, but that's just me. Nostalgic flavors, caramel, toffee, and apple are in demand. Maybe went and gave some Gen Z insight. Here's its formula that it's going to be using. And then based off of its rank, this is the order that it thinks that these might be successful. Now, I'm seeing a tried and true one, sea salt caramel. That's not exclusive to fall. I just had one of those earlier today, as a matter of fact. But that's an interesting list. And then it went ahead and provided some insights. And being helpful and offering to help design a fall menu. So that's the output of my prompt if I run it against the web. I'm going to run it one more time, though. I'm going to switch over to the work toggle.
Yeah.
And remember, work is going to extend to include web results. It does have access to what I have explicit access and permissions to in the Microsoft 365 cloud. I'm going to go ahead and send it, and we're going to see what the output looks like here.
You know, while this is running, like, I'm so spoiled now with how fast Copilot starts generating content. Like, it just kind of hit me again. I was like, man, we used to like have to wait a good like 5 to 10 seconds before text would start spilling onto the screen. Right. It's just like so fast now, all these platforms.
Brown sugar.
I love that you're incorporating like market research into it, you know, and having it evaluate its own output.
Yep.
It's pretty interesting.
So similar formula, like similar set of sequence, but the results are formatted differently.
Yeah.
Still kept the pirate theme. Not as much alliteration in the names other than the Buccaneers butter biscuit. Or the maple masked mocha.
Say that 5 times fast.
5 maple masked mochas.
Oh God.
And then it did the ranking. So like same structure. So it followed the prompt, but I'm going to throw this in the chat for John so that he has it over on his side. And you know, we'll send that over to him. He's got it. He can potentially run it, but that's just that's just a from scratch prompting example just based off of what I know about prompting and things that like I've done over the years with prompting.
Yeah. So then my side of things, I started very simply with Copilot Coach, or Prompting Coach is what it's called. Being like, hey, I need to do this thing. I didn't give it a lot to work with. So in those instructions, it's got to challenge me or to ask me questions because it wants to get to the 4 components that we've talked a lot about in the past: the goal, the context, the source, the expectations. The GCSE is what people have started just rattling off the acronym. And so I filled in that information. So it gave me a prompt now that incorporates all 4 of those things, right? And it's a little bit more straightforward. It's not as much of a stretch. Like Andy, yours is like trying to do multiple tasks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think of some ideas, do some research, and then, evaluate your idea against that research, right? You're kind of having it do a multifaceted thing, which is more agentic, right, in type of behavior. Mine is more like, just spit this out. And then I added one bonus onto it, which is to give me the recipes. And it's interesting too, a concept around prompt engineering that's not in the 4 what is it, goal, source, context, and expectations, is examples, right? A tactic is to give an example of how you want something formatted or what good looks like. It went ahead and it did that here. Said insert a horizontal line, and it gave me it put parentheses with hyphens, like I need it to look like a horizontal line. So I copied that, I pasted it in, and it gave me, pretty much exactly that, where it's like, all right, here's the menu, and it's got the description, the main ingredients, and what the name of it is. It also kind of did a lot of alliteration. So it must have in like the system prompt that like people like alliteration, it's got some pumpkin in there because I told it not to avoid pumpkin like you did. Mine is just more wide open, but it's grouped by the types of drinks. And then you can see here, it did exactly what I wanted, where it separated out with horizontal lines, and it gave me the, how am I actually going to make this? Because that way I can look at it and I can decide like if I want to axe any of these off the bat. Right. So probably what I would do from this would be to continue the conversation to do the other task that you wanted to do, Andy, right? So then I would say like, take these ideas and do market research on my target audience of Gen Z professionals in a hip neighborhood of Kansas City, and score the drink ideas against that market research, right? So I can kind of do it as a different step, and with Copilot, you still have, what is it like? Is it still 30 turns back and forth, so it's not like you have to get it right the first time. You can go back and be like, well, I don't really like this. Cut those 3 off. Give me 5 more additional ones, and go back and forth before you kind of arrive at something. But it's doing it a little bit differently than you. It gave for you, it gave a number rating. For my version of it, it's kind of doing like, does it hit or miss the trends that it finds? That's kind of interesting, where it's like, hey, Gen Z, they like cold coffee more than any other generation. They like craft style drinks. They like this or that. So then it's like, okay, well, does it hit or miss the mark across? And that actually was a side scroll. It wasn't just those 2. Like, look how many things it rated off of. Okay, it did give me a number score right there. So it gave like 5 ingredients and then gave me like, put point values for those components. So that's kind of cool. I'm a visual type of a guy, so I like the whole emoji, like grading chart and stuff like that. I didn't tell it that I liked that, but it just happened that I liked that, So then it gives me some overall recommendations. And again, just like you, it's always trying to be helpful, right? Copilot is always wanting to be like, okay, what's next? What's the next thing we want to talk about? It encourages you to keep talking and keep like narrowing down on the product that you're going to get out of it. So, do you want me to run your prompt that you had sent, or
yeah, I'm
do we
curious.
want to take this and
I want to see you run the prompt that I sent over.
Okay.
It's a copy paste verbatim, and I want to compare the results that Copilot gives you for the exact same prompt that I've already ran one time.
Yeah. Do you want me to do web or work?
Let's do web first.
Okay. All right. We're going with web. We're going to paste that in and run it. And this is a good example. Like, I've gotten a lot of feedback from end users early on. I don't get it so much anymore, but a lot of people were like, man, I run the same thing and I get different results. And it's like, I think at the very beginning of Gen AI, people were, they're still stuck in that mindset of like, it's a script and I need to get the same output every time, and consistency is what software is all about. But like, it's taken us a little bit of time to realize that like, it's creative, it's going to, it's going to be different every time. And you see that like there's different formatting each time, and it just approaches things in a different way. And that's where agents are starting to get a little bit more popular, where if people are craving the consistency, you bake that into the custom instructions if you don't want it to be as creative.
So I took my web output and put that in a Copilot page, and I shared the link with you. If you want to maybe open that up in a new tab, maybe we can go split screen and you can compare your results side by side with my results.
Let's do that. It's so good that we're like in the same in the same tenant. Okay, so we're going to split screen this thing, and we're going to open up Copilot on that side. Okay, so this is yours, Andy, on the left-hand side. Mine's on the right-hand side. So it's doing like very similar, right? It's got the same even emoji right here with like no pumpkin edition. It did put mine into a table.
Yeah.
Yours is on a list. Yeah. But when you did it in the work tab, you got a table. So it just kind of like decides on the fly, right?
Yeah.
And it goes down after that. It does the market research, and it says, it indicates on both of them that it's from 2025, so it's up to date research.
What about
top
your
trends? Do what?
Can you hover over your sources and compare the sources?
Yeah, sure. Mine is Bazaar Coffee and Cyrus Ramsey. Yours is Eat This and Creators of Coffee.
So let's say you grab some different web results.
Yeah, this is Corner Coffee Store, and this one's coffeebean.com. So mine, it pulled from 4 places, and they were not the same as yours.
Right.
So that's interesting. Cold brew and nitro are still popular, so like that's a common thread across the two things. Flavor fatigue with pumpkin is real. People want to get away from pumpkin. It doesn't mention that here. I wonder if I influenced that, by having the no pumpkin in the prompt. But yeah, those are interesting. And then it's got, here's my formula for ranking, and it's kind of got yours as like a 30 out of 100, and it kind of builds up to 100%. This here, it's basically the same thing. Let me squeeze this down a little bit. Oh, it's read only. 30% is trend alignment. You're at trend alignment 30%. Brand fit. Okay, thanks for resizing that. Yours is 20, mine's 25. Flavor uniqueness, 25 versus 20. Health appeal, that's not even really considered in here on my side. And then visual appeal, it still gave me 10%, you 15 to kind of get to those same numbers. So it's a similar type of idea, but it's, it's got some room for differences, right? And that's where, if that's okay, and you gotta kind of decide for your own business, like, is it okay for that to be that way, or does precision matter, right? If we're talking like healthcare analysis or something like that, like consistency and precision probably matters a lot more than coffee shop planning, right? To where like for our scenario, personally, I don't think it really matters if it shows as a table or if it shows as a list, right? That's almost a personal preference thing. Um, the ranking formula, I think that matters a little bit more. Like we want to kind of have consistent measurement, so like you might not put the format so much in the instructions, but you might put like, here's the formula for success. You might put that into the custom instructions. That way it's apples to apples, right? And it's not, you're not scoring on a different scale, because that could be problematic, right? And honestly, like this is kind of a helpful thing to do, building a process mapping, or whatever you want to call it, this prompting technique together on a meeting is, I think, would be a really good idea for people to think about. Doing this in a vacuum, you're going to like, you're going to like look at it and think in your own mind, but the two of us doing it and sharing the output with each other, putting it side by side and being like, I like this. Oh, I like that. And then we kind of stumbled upon, when we were looking side by side, like, whoa, there's a potential red flag here.
Yep.
It's scoring them differently. And we talk about that, So if you're building a prompt that you're going to have other people run, and it's going to be a process that you're going to implement at your organization, it's a very good idea to hone these prompts out loud in a collaborative format, and not do it by yourself and just deliver the perfect prompt to everybody, because there might be things that you're missing because you're only one person. And it also, invites the other side, the recipient, to be lazy. Maybe lazy is too strong of a word, but it invites them to like not really scrutinize the prompt, because they're like, oh, sweet, I got my prompt, I'm going to go run with it. And I'm finding that a lot of people kind of at that level 100 level, the lower level of like, I'm brand new to this, they kind of want like a magic bullet type of a prompt. And if you're trying to really raise the digital literacy of your organization or raise the skill level, you really want to consider like what you're delivering in a prompt library. You want to consider that people are going to blindly take those and run with them, so they need to be good prompts, is what I'm trying to say, I think.
Yeah.
Because like right here, we've got a problem that we kind of scoring things on different scales is not necessarily ideal. Yeah.
Let's repeat this one more time. Let's
Okay.
take it to the work toggle though. Same
All right,
prompt.
let's do that.
Take it to the work toggle, and I reshared. I gave you another Copilot
Another
page
link.
with
Okay.
this one has an edit link in it.
Okay. Thanks.
So you'll be able to.
All right. So we're going to split screen that again.
You're already.
Oh, I think I
split in one
split it
tab.
out.
You got to go in. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got to close that guy. Go over here and get my thing back. I don't use split screen as much as you do, but I guess I need more practice.
It's really helpful.
Okay, so same type of deal here. It's got this time it's a little bit different. It did choose a table for both of us, so that's pretty cool. I mean, it's got, of course, you're going to get different like drink ideas, right? It's not going to be one for one. What we're looking at is the structure, right?
Sure.
That's kind of what I'm more concerned about, is the quality of the structure, not necessarily the content at this point. So right here,
it looks like you're further down. Your ranked list is further.
It completely, yeah. Like right here, I'm not seeing where it did ranking. It kind of just quit.
Just for the sake of being thorough, let's do a new work chat, paste in the prompt one more time.
Yeah, let me try that again, because it seemed like it bailed out too easily. Because that was weird. It didn't do like the market analysis portion.
Right.
All right, let's let this thing run. Maybe it's because I was moving windows around and maybe I reloaded the window somehow. Okay, now, yeah, this looks better. All right, so it's got that. Now, it still didn't do That's interesting because it still didn't do market research
Yeah,
in here, right? Like, or it did it. It's got trend analysis and like customer appeal, but it didn't tell me what the trends were.
right.
It just has a link from Bazaar Coffee. So it did less research. Like I've only got 2 resources. I guess I got 3. The other one had at least 4. So that's interesting. But you can see it's got the list of drinks, the ranking formula. We've got here trend alignment, 40% versus 30%, brand fit, uniqueness. It's got the same stuff. Pirate theme. You know what I wonder, Andy? Do you think that it's muddying the results because this is in the tenant where you stored that loop page and gave me access to it?
It's possible.
Because it's kind of interesting that it's using like the same words, almost the exact same words. But it didn't cite that loop page as a source.
Nope.
So that's interesting. But it kind of looks like it's influenced by the by the other loop page that we're looking at. Interesting. So again, it's kind of looking like some things are a little bit different, right? So when you're building an agent out of this type of idea, you want to probably hard code the sections so that it doesn't skip any sections. And you probably want to hard code in the instructions the ranking formula you want to go with and what weight you want to give the different components, right? Because as we've done it back and forth a couple times with 2 different people, we've come to discover that there's some anomalies there, or some room for creativity that we might want to lock down.
I think it's also important to call out, if you have a definitive process where you've done this without AI, walk through the definitive process, document the steps, the criteria, the ranking formulas, and then come up with a gold standard. What is a high quality result that we expect that if we did this by hand, we would come out with? And if you have a process, there's a chance you already have a gold standard because you use it for work. Take that gold standard and tell Copilot, I'm going to craft a prompt that's going to walk through this series of steps, and this is the gold standard of an answer. This is what I expect out of a response, and use Copilot to help you to create that prompt. So basically, you're reverse engineering from the gold standard and your instructions the prompt. Have Copilot work with you through that, iterate through it, and then when you get the prompt, test it, and then ask Copilot to evaluate the output of that prompt versus the gold standard, and iterate against it again. And do that a couple of times until you dial in that prompt, and you can run it a few times and start to get an answer that would be a gold standard based off of what your process is today. That's when you know that you're able to get to a point where it's consistent and that prompt can be reused by other people, or it can be reused a couple, I guess, new iterations of the same process. But that's also been something I've been doing a lot of work on, using Copilot as a validation of the output of Copilot. So I have a gold standard. I know what a marketing blurb for Jolly Roger Java should sound like. I know the tone. I know the style guide. I know the word choice. I know what the copy is going to look like when we go to print something. These are our standards. So I'm going to use that gold standard and then have Copilot create an output and then a new conversation, evaluate that output and the prompt, and compare it against the gold standard in the process. And through a couple of conversations, I'm going to create an evaluation of prompt and gold standard, and then I can get to something that's more high quality. The one last thing on that. The thing that kind of frustrates end users that I've seen initially is they hear AI is magic and it's going to save me a whole lot of time. And the first couple of times they run something, it doesn't save them a lot of time because they're figuring out how to get to that gold standard that they're used to just working through. The first
Hmm.
few times you approach a new process with this tool, you have to learn how to work with the tool to get the desired outcome. Once you start getting the desired outcome and it's repeatable, that's when the time savings start to really kick in. So you're going to
Yeah.
have to iterate through it a few times before you get to what is the equivalent of a gold standard.
Hmm. Now, talking about the gold standard and getting to like repeatability, let's say that this example, whether it's good or not, let's say that we decide together in a meeting that this is the gold standard. This is perfect. I love the way that it did this. How do you think we should take that and turn it into custom instructions? Would you go directly into Agent Builder, or do you think that we should take this and say, like, in the same conversation, hey, I love the way that you responded here. I want you to give me like a structured, I want you to strip out the content basically and give me like the structure of what your output was so that I could create an agent out of it and see if we could create like a blank example, or almost a template that then we go and we start building our agent off of. Have you ever like worked with trying to do that?
Yeah,
Like, oh my
absolutely.
God, this is perfect. Let's pull it out.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's part of like the kind of the validation process. So what I would
Yeah.
actually do, like before I even like add to this conversation, I would drop this in a loop document because I've got
Yeah.
a Copilot page. I would put it in a
Yeah.
Copilot page and turn it into a deliverable because I've got the output that I like. And when
Hmm.
you do that, go ahead and just edit in pages.
Yeah.
It's got the prompt at the top.
Hmm.
So you'll see that up top.
Yeah.
And then it's got the output of the conversation. This is now a document. So I can go back and do other things with that conversation. I don't have to worry
Hmm.
about it. But now I've got a document that I can reference. But what I suggest is clear the memory. If I do it in the conversation that's there, it's gonna look at the first thing that I asked it to do, and then it's gonna look at it as a conversation. It's gonna kind of build on it. So
Hmm.
start a new conversation and reference this page. So I would do. You're gonna do this on the work toggle.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense now. So, okay. So, I want to create an agent for building seasonal menus for Jolly Roger Java.
I'm gonna put 2 links for you in the chat window.
Okay. Yeah. So this is, if I go into files, where's that page that we did? I have to go find it here. So under pages on the side, this is that page that we were working with. So I'm going to go ahead and just like copy the page, I guess, because it's not showing up yet in my thing. Okay. So I want to give me an example format for the response output based on this page, and then reference that page. I don't know if there's enough time for it to have shown up. Unique. Okay, there it is. Unique fall beverages created just now. I'm going to close that page out because I don't actually need it. So it looked at the page, and now it's trying to rank it based off of what was inside the page. So I can say keep the ranking criteria, but clear all other content. So it's an example for my agent custom instructions. Let's see what that gives me. So seasonal criteria, the trend, the brand fit, it's got all the percentages right there. Yeah, see, it's stripping off the whole thing. It's like I want a blank I want a blank version of this that has like a table at the top and has the market research. So it's not doing what I wanted it to. Placeholders used for scoring. I can re-rank the original. See, I wonder if it almost would be better to like say, take this and then go into Loop and use it as a template, you know?
Right.
That's empty. So like if we go over to loop.cloud.microsoft and we create a new page, say that we do it inside of just like my workspace individually. Create a new page, and then there's like reuse a page, you know, with Copilot. So I'm going to reuse this page that I had just worked on, change content to be blank. See what it does. If it's going to be smart enough to basically go through and pull out everything, but leave the empty tables and all that. Isn't able to do that.
You're asking, you want the format. So
yeah.
You want to extract the format. So that's when you would prompt against it. Use the same format in this document and provide provide the link.
Mm-hmm. See, I would almost want it to be like a markdown template, you know, that we could put into the instructions to say, here's how I want you to do it every single time, you know. So it did it, but yeah, it just kind of isn't really doing what I want. Because what I would want is I would want all this crap to be blank. So I guess I could manually, you know, go do it blank like that, right? Like seasonal menu ideation, right? You know, because you want to kind of have like a blank slate if you can. And you would want to have like take all of this stuff out because you don't want to like influence it, you know?
Right.
So kind of got all that. That looks generic enough. I think that's fine. And then I would just want to delete these things out. And then that's kind of like a clear template that then I could take that template and use that as like an example, you know? So I called it seasonal menu ideation. So then if I go in and I start creating an agent, click create agent, configure. Now, if I go over here, could I use that? I don't think loop pages aren't available, are they? In agent knowledge. So maybe it would be best then to take it and save it out as like a PDF, maybe. Save as a PDF, call it, you know, template, put it in my downloads folder. That's fine. And then that way, whenever I add that in, I guess I'd have to upload it somewhere, wouldn't I? Oh, my Lord. Upload it to the marketing department. There we go. So then I would say that like that's the template, right? So it's like hard loaded in there, you know? And then one of your instructions would be what, like use the attached knowledge as your structure for your response or something, right? I don't know. What do you think?
This is one way to go about it.
Yeah.
I want you to walk through it. I'm going to show you another way to do the same thing.
Yeah. So seasonal fall menu planning, this agent plans menus. And then I'll probably go into Copilot and have it just like puke out some instructions for me. So I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going to go into that previous conversation right here. I'm going Unique fall beverages. Is it this one that I liked? Nope, that was the one I didn't like. Let's go with this one. Take this previous response and give me custom instructions to arrive at this type of response for a generic agent to create menus. Gen AI agent to create menus. I'll have it just like give me some stuff. And then I want to add like use this format and see if it hard codes it for me in there. Okay, so we'll do that. I'll just grab all these, copy and paste them, then read through it fairly quickly. I don't want the optional stuff. So we're going to do that. I'm going to slap in those instructions, and then over here, understand the menu content, extract all the menu items. Yeah, I like that. So it's an example. If not, provide the ask the user to clarify. That's cool. Conduct market research. That's good. Scoring rubric based on, I'm going to say 1 to 5 based on criteria in your knowledge, attached knowledge. If I could spell things right today. Score each drink across the content, add the average of the scores. Okay, cool. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to I'm just going to create it and see how it works. Oh, wait, I didn't want to do that. I want to tell it to give me the format from the template. Dismiss. Let's go edit it. Always respond with in a way that is formatted like the attached template in your knowledge, right? Now we'll update that, see if it works. And I didn't even do any like starter prompts or anything like that, just for the interest of time. Okay, we'll go to that agent. Then I want to create a new chat and say, create a Spring menu for Jolly Roger Java, and see if it gives me, hopefully, something similar to what we got when I had a much longer prompt last time. Nope. Didn't give me that format at all. It didn't put it in a table. It didn't, do any of that type of stuff. It did keep the ranking formula as 30, 25, 25, 10, 10. I remember that's what the numbers were. But yeah, it didn't give me those stuff. So why don't you show me your approach and see if you arrive at a better result.
All right. So let's bring mine up, and then
okay.
We'll kind of share. So I'm going to take the default prompt that I have here, start a new web-based conversation. And what I want to walk it through is, and I'm going to say something along the lines of, let's create an M365 Copilot chat agent. Here's a sample prompt. All right, so I've given it the sample prompt. Now I'm going to give it a couple of resources. So go grab these from my clipboard. All right. And then I'm going to tell it, use these resources. And I've actually got 3 separate Microsoft resources in there that I wanted to pull from. Learn about Copilot prompts, Copilot Studio agent builder, and then the declarative agent set of instructions. And then the specific thing that I wanted to focus in on, and it's from the last 2 pages, the Copilot Studio agent builder and the declarative agents. What I'm really interested in, and we'll grab this snippet from the web page here and bring it into our window. All right, these are the kind of the guidelines. So like I'm preloading it with like what I want out of it. Like specifically, these are the things from the declarative agent instructions to focus in on. So what's the name and the description? What are the things that it can we can add to it? What's like the role? Knowing that there's a character limit of 1,000 characters that it can work with. So I'm giving it all of that information. And then what we can actually do is we could give it a few shot example, like an example of what the output like we ran like previously looks like. So you were trying to do it with a document. You were trying to like link to it with a document in the agent builder. I'm going to do it. I'm going to give it as like a few shot.
Yeah, because I was hoping that it would be able to like read through like the XML structure on the file.
Right.
And it apparently just didn't really look at that at all.
So let me grab this little snippet right here. And so did it? Yeah. So if we scroll down, like I've given it an example and I've highlighted the example of like what I want the format to look like in Markdown.
Okay.
And I'm just going to go back and clarify. Let's create I need to say agent. I didn't say agent up there. And let's drop this onto a new chat. Now
I wish this box was bigger.
Yeah, I do too.
This is kind of crazy.
And it does like makes it hard to see. And it scrolls fast when you like try to highlight things. At least it does on my Mac.
Yeah, it's almost like it would be better to like write that in like Notepad, you know, so you can see what the heck you're doing and then slap it into Copilot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or Loop.
Yeah, or Loop. So you can move the blocks around and yeah.
All right. So it's starting to create like its output, its instructions, knowledge sources, capabilities, and then it generated the starter prompts. And so like I've got a pretty good like set of instructions to work with.
I like that it gave you like icon ideas and description and stuff like that too.
And that was partly because I asked, or like I included that as part of what I copy and pasted from the web page.
Yeah.
All right. And sometimes it'll ask, do you want me to create an image or a placeholder image? But we've got the name, we've got the description, there's the instructions. And it went ahead and it took the few shot example, and now it's a unique name, short interval description, a marketing description, hot and cold. Like
and that's what I was wanting, was like make it generic, you know.
Now and then it doesn't like I would probably want to append like the ranking formula that we're using there. So let me I've got this conversation in memory. I'm going to go back to the previous conversation, and I'm going to go and find the beverage ranking formula. So I'm going to take that, and I'm just going to tell it to
like use this for your ranking formula.
All right, so we're going to get the output.
I love that it like assigned variables to the to each of them with a letter, and then that's pretty wild.
Little off the rails there, but it's easy enough for me to copy and paste that into a section. So rank the beverages accordingly and provide rationale.
Then you could just inject that other part. Yeah.
Right. So let's go new tab. let's create the agent over here, and we'll
Okay.
do our split screen. I think that's what I'm looking
It's hard to figure out which is which when they're all say Copilot in them.
Well, that's not the one I wanted. All right, I'll close that. Got that. Go to split screen. There we go. So there's
Okay,
the
there we
agent
go.
builder. So let's start configuring.
Okay.
All right, so 262 characters out of 1,000.
Yeah, you definitely got more room. And your custom instructions it wrote have a persona, where it says you are such and such at the very beginning.
Now I'm gonna omit those two for now.
Yeah, because we haven't gone and downloaded any kind of like market research or developed any like, guidelines for market research.
I am gonna take the ranking there. That's in. I'm gonna leave that. And then let's go and grab the starter prompt. No pumpkin.
Yeah, I like that. 2 emojis.
All right. So I think everything's good there. Let's unsplit. Create it.
That's funny how when you were like in split screen, it squished like the demo, like try it section as a tab itself. Works on pretty narrow screens.
All right. Did it run automatically?
No, I think you'd have to like do a new script. Yeah.
All right.
Do a new chat from it. I think it just loaded the last chat from history. I like that tip of using emojis in your starter prompt. That made it a lot more colorful.
Yeah.
For like the landing page of the agent. I haven't seen people do that before. Putting emojis in the title of your starter prompt.
Now, full disclosure, this particular prompt, I did have it do a couple of additional things. The one I copy and pasted. I haven't created an internal description and then a marketing description that we publish externally. I have it list out the ingredients, also break down between a hot and a cold recipe, and then go ahead and create some like taglines to go along with it. So not only is it creating the ideas, but it's already
Doing some marketing on it. Yeah.
marketing stuff that we would reuse. And so each one of them should have that.
That's cool.
So we move through, we can see all 10 have that. There's the ranking formula, market research, and then it started assigning scores to like each one of them. Now I'm curious, are they all going to be 85? A bunch of them are.
One was 80.
Yeah.
It's pretty proud of itself.
But in theory, what we would have is, so let's say, try to
lean into the pumpkin flavors. Go pumpkin wild.
well, we run it again. Welcome, internal, marketing, ingredients, hot, iced, taglines. We scroll through. I'm catching up with it. A lot of alliteration. 10 beverages. Ranking formula. Cross market. And then the ranking was different this time. So I need to iterate against that like a little bit. But for the most part, I'm starting to get some consistent output now. So there's a little bit of work to still be done. at least on the ranking portion of this. But we'll iterate against that and start to potentially come out with some higher value. But now I'm starting to get something that's a lot more consistent, and I've ran it a couple of times now. Formula has or the format has been built into it, so I find that putting the format into the instructions kind of helps versus like trying to reference it. The other thing to point out on the Brewmaster is that with the way that we prompted it, the market research isn't actually happening because I haven't given it sources. I haven't given it like specific knowledge to go back and like work against. So like if I go
Mhm.
back into create an agent and
I
I
think
go back to the
what
top,
you'd also have to do, I noticed you didn't get any sources in there from the web either,
right?
because like what I would probably do is add the web in there so it can at least start pulling from
Yeah.
like those coffee websites.
So
In the absence of you having real corporate market research being done,
right.
ideally in like a real enterprise, you would pay somebody to do market research and they would deliver that as a report. Then you would add that to the knowledge,
Mhm.
you know? But for this example, I think if we add the web, would probably be sufficient.
Right. So to edit that and to append against it, I'm just going to go back to create an agent, and along the top it says new agent, and right there is the one that I'm like working on. There's the Jolly
Mhm.
Roger Brewmaster. So I'm going to go ahead and
Amy
open
had
this up.
had a really good comment earlier on. Let me if I can find his chat. He was saying this is actually new. I noticed this like 2 days ago. Now you can edit the agent like from the three dots on the agent,
Oh,
so you don't have to do that dance anymore. You might show people that.
I learned something new. I'll do that in a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah. It's like when you hover over the name and hit the dot dot dots. Now you can edit it directly, which saves
Okay.
me like 3 clicks or whatever.
Yeah, I'll go back and look at that in a minute.
Yeah.
All right, so back in editing, scroll down. This is where I would do the knowledge sources and say like, okay, let's just do all websites. So now I've
Yeah.
opened it up, and now I'm going to run it against like all websites. And for this down here, that's a lot. So I'm going to say no pumpkin.
Okay.
So we're going to simplify
The entirety
that.
of the prompt.
Yep. So that's simplified. Then we'll go ahead and update it. And probably need to update the ranking inside of there as well. But let that
Yeah,
run.
which you would kind of work with that right-hand side before you're publishing and updating. You would work back and forth and kind of tweak your instructions to get what you want, whenever you're spending more time actually building.
Yeah. So what you
You're
were
looking for
saying
that
is,
edit button.
yeah, go to the dot,
So
dot,
on
dot,
the left side on the nav bar, click dot 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 and hit edit.
edit.
Yeah, dude. Isn't that
And what if we
nice?
go to settings over here?
Nope, that's going to be chat settings. Yeah.
So
And that's where later on, like memory and personalization will show, according to the screenshots they put in the
Well,
announcements.
this is a welcome update. I did not know about that. So
Yeah, isn't that nice? Yeah.
All right, I'm going to send the same prompt to it, and this time because we opened it up to all websites, there should be some varying responses. We're still getting this similar format from before, which is what we wanted. I noticed Corsair showed up a couple of times.
Mm-hmm. The thing with this is you're getting to consistency. The couple takeaways are for me, like if you're working with a prompt that is going to be something that's used over and over again by more people, like you're going to share it with your team or a department or something, try to work out the prompt with other people so that like you can see like test runs from different people and you can talk it out and try to arrive at your instructions better. And then when you need consistency, when consistency matters, starting to port that over to an agent is going to give you a more predictable output. Those are kind of the big takeaways for me for when I switch from prompting into agent. But also, I think we uncovered a really valuable concept that if you kind of do a prompting together as a team, by talking out loud about it, you find ways to make that prompt better.
Right.
Where if I was just by myself, I probably would have, I would have overlooked the things like, hey, that ranking is not consistent, because I wouldn't have been looking across multiple runs with the different people had run.
So I'm going to do one last version of this this agent. I'm just going to do a new one, and I'm just going to create an agent. I've tested this one a few times, so this should be pretty dialed in. Okay. So let me just grab from my notes. And then this is going to be fun. Hold on. I got a lot to copy paste. And then was there a sample prompt?
And to be honest, I kind of don't like that they like added the web stuff under that drop down.
Yeah, it's kind of buried down there.
Yeah, man, I liked it better as a toggle. I like these grounding things where it's like include my email, include my Teams chats, but I still wish like web was a capability that you turned on and off, because I think a lot of people are going to forget about it. All pumpkin or no pumpkin. That's what we do here at Jolly Roger Java. It's all or nothing.
You're all in or you're not in at all.
Yeah, if you're not first, you're last.
All right. So we'll go ahead and create this one. All right. So let's go to the agent. Start a new chat. No pumpkin. And let me just grab from my clipboard.
Yeah, an actual prompt. We talk all about prompt engineering, and then we demo with like literally 2 words.
Now, do I need to tell it to do all this extra stuff? Can I trim out this last piece of it and say, you're a marketing guru for Jolly Roger Java? Can I just tell it?
That's baked into that's baked into the instructions, Yeah.
Avoid pumpkin flavors.
Mm-hmm.
The name should align with Jolly Roger Java Coffee, the brand and theme.
Yeah.
And now let's see what it sends us. Again, same format from before.
Mm-hmm.
Now this one, notice I appended it. I want 12, 16, and 24 ounce iced coffees, hot, 12 and 16 ounce. Marketing taglines, and it's going to repeat that over and over. So we'll let this catch up.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the descriptions. There's a little bit more vivid. I'm not going to lie. I had a lot of fun building this prompt and iterating against it, and like learning the nuances of going from a prompt into instructions and iterating and testing. Almost there. We're at 7. I should have just told it to do 5 for this last one.
This stuff that building out these prompts and formatting that you are. I mean, you're running circles around me right now. It goes to show that like this is a muscle that we need to exercise. You need to dedicate time to getting better and using these tools, and you do a lot more experimenting and kind of wild experimenting. I'm kind of like using it integrated into my day at this point, to where I'm like trying to do it just to get crap done,
Mm-hmm.
But playing with this stuff, you can see that like Andy is like way more developed than I am, because he plays with this a lot more than I do, I think is ultimately part of it, And maybe you're also just more creative than I am, because you're always like doing more fun stuff, and I'm just like
I'm
ready to
trying to
turn my
approach
brain
it
off.
from a framework
Yeah.
point of view, and so I go through and I get an outcome, and then my next step is like, hey, how can I get consistency from this outcome? Or if I
Hmm.
change this, what happens? And so like I like to kind of iterate against it a few times to see like what directions I can kind of push it in. But most of the time when I'm working with like trying to create a prompt or an agent, I'm trying to figure out um, what are the rules that like we can we can push like within it. Like
Hmm.
what are the limits, but like what are the rules like that apply like within it? And then how can I turn it into something repeatable? How can I turn it into a framework? How can I
Hmm.
figure out how to share this and make this part of a process that like other people can use? And that comes from like being in the training world as long as I've been. I can teach you how to do this thing one time, or I can turn
Hmm.
it into a set of deliverables that many people can benefit from. So I think about scalability, repeatability, and I think about framework a lot. And so like I like to
Hmm.
test against this stuff to kind of understand what are the limits, what can and can I not do with it, how far can I like push it, and if I go in this direction, like what's the outcome gonna be? And then I try to find creative ways to like go back and evaluate like, okay, I got this result, let's reverse engineer it and see if I can turn that into a template. So that's kind of like the
Hmm.
first step. Turn it into a template. Now it's repeatable. It's plug and play. All right. Now let's like turn it into something scalable. Now let's turn it into something that's like a framework. So
Yeah.
like I like to kind of iterate against that. Um, as you were kind of describing that, like how we approach our prompting, I noticed it didn't do the rankings. So like it got a lot of like response, but it didn't get the rankings. And that's another thing to kind of point out. There
Hmm.
are limits to like how big a response could actually be, and this one's pretty long considering like everything that's like in the prompt or like
Hmm.
that it
It'd be
generates.
more readable if you had put in like, "Hey, do this as a table instead of a
Right.
bulleted list." Like, it wouldn't be so exhausting to scroll through.
But it just
Yeah.
didn't get that last couple of things that I did wanted to do, and, like, the instructions are brainstorm the drink concepts
Hmm.
for each, draft internal and external descriptions, generate the ingredient list, calculate recipe proportions for each size and temperature, and then generate 10 taglines, and then lastly, assemble and rank the concepts. So it didn't actually do that last piece. It didn't get that as part of the instructions. So even though it is an agent, there might be some things that it doesn't quite get, and it could be based off of the limit of the output that
Hmm.
it was that it generated. It
Yeah.
could be that it was buried in the steps and it had like a whole lot of few shot instructions to like go back and reference. So there's still, even with agents, some room for improvement.
Hmm.
And like even if you're iterating against it, um, it's not going to be like it's going to be more consistent, but you're still the pilot in the
You
co-pilot.
know, one thing that I think, if Microsoft ever, hears any of this, one thing that I think would be really nice would be if agents had versions. I've noticed that there's no like versioning or release notes when I go to update.
Hmm.
It'd be kind of nice if like I could, track what I changed in the agent whenever I update it,
Right. Version history.
because yeah, I feel like there's something missing there with all, agents don't have like versions or tracking for like what's different about the agent.
Version history in agents or
Hmm.
agents would be cool. Version history in whiteboard would also be
Yeah.
very helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, you got a way better result than I did, as far as the formatting and things like that. I think this kind of exhausts the idea of prompting versus agents, but more so the idea that it's kind of like a spectrum or a continuum. A lot of times your prompt that you're doing over and over again, that may continue its life as a scheduled prompt, or a prompt gallery prompt, you know, because it's kind of like repeatable, it's copy and paste level, or if it's like the prompt is about a process and we're going to do like, you know, we're going to run this process with different inputs, that's when it kind of branches out to maybe it continues its life on as an agent instead of as like a prompt library prompt. So we definitely have covered a lot of ground. I think we've shown the idea of going from a prompt into agent. I think that's, you know, people are going to be pretty keen to do that fairly frequently, but I wouldn't discount the fact that, you know, consider whether or not this agent is worthwhile to make, and really, is it, you know, what are we getting by making an agent? If it's like, you know, copy and paste type stuff, maybe don't go to the trouble of making an agent for that. So,
yep. So
cool.
there's definitely some nuance to it. I would say just a couple of takeaways. When to choose each approach. Use a prompt when you are doing a task that is exploratory or ad hoc. Use a prompt when you're iterating rapidly. You don't necessarily need to share it with other people. You don't necessarily need to reuse the workflow. Use a chat agent when the scenario is something that recurs. It happens on a schedule. If you have to do things like embed a brand tone, legal language, or a data source, I think it's a little bit better to use an agent for that, because you can give it a definitive knowledge source. Point to this document for our brand guide. Point to this document for our legal language. Point to this document for our format for recipes and proportions and whatnot. So anything where you have like that tone, language, rules, use the knowledge source for that. I think that's better in an agent than it is if you're just referencing that in the course of a prompt. And then agents are also really good when multiple teammates need to be using the same prompt, the same, you know, AI tool as part of the process. I think agents are just going to give you a lot better consistency overall. Agents tend to meet the style, the length, the citation, and the brand voice a lot more often than prompts do. Prompts vary a little bit more there. Agents, the instructions are consistent, each interaction, each new conversation. So it makes reusing that agent much more valuable. You do get the grounding in it, whereas prompts, you got to remember to do like the grounding. From an authoring standpoint, though, sometimes remembering where the prompt was, finding it in the notebook, copying and pasting it, especially if it's not in a prompt gallery, that can be tedious. Versus an agent, it's in the sidebar. Like you can just call it up if it's been shared with you. And then the other thing to think about is governance and risk. If I am part of a department and we're thinking about Copilot as a part of our process, I would want to have something that's high quality, that I can measure against a gold standard, that would stand up against my enterprise governance and risk rules and liability. I would want to validate that and test that. I think an agent's going to give me more control over that than if I were doing this as like a series of prompts. And that's where we're really going from like the me and personal productivity to the we and business process and business productivity. And I think those are really some things to think about as you're kind of doing this journey. And then just the last thing, use Microsoft's resources. We included a few of those here. We'll make sure we put those out in the comments down below. I'm curious to see what you end up doing with agents. I know this has been a fun exercise for me, and I'm going to have a whole week of it coming up
Nice.
at TechCon 365 in Seattle next week, and then again in August, and then again in November in Dallas. Promo codes available. Let me know.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's come up from air from this deep dive and take it home. I'm getting ready to. You're going to Seattle. I'm getting ready to take 2 weeks off and hopefully unplug a little bit and rest my brain. So
Nice.
Thank you, Andy, again. And I will be watching with intense FOMO as you go do your traveling for TechCon. So thanks everybody for sticking around, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks all.